to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fawcett. Each week we interview experts in AI, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. In our show today, we look at AI and creative design. I'm joined by Lee Swearingen, Chief Design Officer at DXM, and John Kremer, Chief Product Officer at DXM. John and Lee, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
So just to kick this off, can you guys both give us a little introduction, tell us a little about your experience with AI, design, and then how you see the technology evolving over time? An easy question.
That's a layup to start. Lee, why don't I start? I'm John Kremer. I'm the Chief Product Officer of DXM, as you introduced. I'm a Silicon Valley veteran with several tours of duty at big companies, Adobe most recently, but also Yahoo and JP Morgan Chase. Most recently, after leaving Adobe, I've started up a venture capital firm and a social impact firm with a friend. I was happy doing that for a long while until DXM approached me for capital. And instead of giving them capital, I decided to join the team and jump in with both feet with Lee and Kathy and Rick's. My experience with AI is in its current form really started with Adobe, with the work the team was doing over there for 10 plus years. And I've followed that up with passion ever since. I'm an advisor to a couple of companies that are in the space. And then certainly in this world, this really marries a lot of my past, both in product design and in running web-based businesses with what we think we can do in the future with moving forward much faster with both the design process and really the content that flows out of the design process.
Lee?
Yeah, I'm Lee Swearingen. Worked at Apple briefly. Was a creative director at a company called Macromedia way back, which was bought by Adobe. And then started my own design firm that I've had forever, doing innovation work, UX, UI, graphics design stuff as well. AI, we dove in, first started with Siri. We actually worked on Siri before Apple acquired it. So that was pretty interesting. And, worked mostly on the user experience for that. And but it's changed so much. And early 2023, our company was faced with losing a couple of clients after COVID, and really had to figure this thing out. And just thought it was a perfect time to just reinvent what it means to be an agency or to be a design service, right? And then realized very quickly that that's also a tool that's useful to a lot of people. So that's how it started. And we've watched the quality go from, change every 2 months or so. You're just reaching these milestones that are game changers. Now you can do food photography. Now you can do photorealistic portraits of people, and you can't tell the difference. So those are the milestones that we're just seeing every week. We're seeing something new.
Yeah, no, that's great. It is exciting. I mean, I have to admit, to just try to keep up these days is like a real challenge to see what came out yesterday. And but that's okay. It keeps us on our toes, I guess. This is an interesting topic, and I haven't really talked about this much on the podcast. So I'm excited to dive into this more. And that's this intersection of AI and creative design. And I have did one interview with somebody from Adobe, and we were more focused around the customer experience, digital experience kind of piece of it. So we haven't really looked that much at creative design. So how would you define that intersection, and then where do you see particularly strong influence in the design process?
Well, I think that we used to design a lot slower, and it would be a real process, right? You talk to a client, you try to learn what it is they have in their head. They might be saying one thing, but seeing something else. And so there's miscommunication all the time in that realm. But basically, you're trying to design something for someone, right? So the path from having an idea or a concept in your head, or even a conversation about that, to then creating visualizations of what you just said, has just completely, the time there has completely collapsed. So you can go literally from a concept to a visualization of that and reach consensus really quickly. So it's changing, to me, it's really changing fundamentally the way that we design things. If I can say, hey, show me, I never have good examples in mind, but let's go with duck uniforms, right? My son's at U of O, he's a duck, and they have great uniforms, and Nike is involved with that, obviously. But I did this as a test, created probably 200 duck uniforms, just based on, hey, I give it some input as far as we know the duck brand, so we actually have an agent that does know something about the company, the color palette and all that. And then give me 100 of them. And now out of 100, let's pick 5 or 10. Now let's test those with a focus group, right? You're always going to end up with a better result because your initial input was much larger, and the designer becomes the curator. The designer becomes the one who's saying, well, that's good. The AI will literally give you ideas too. It'll just generate stuff that I would have never thought of that. Let's do that. Or you throw in some other variables like, let's see what retro uniforms might look like. So it really just changes that whole game, that whole process. But I think in general, it's just changing the way that we design. And there's so many, that's just one example. There's a lot of examples of that.
Sure.
Yeah, Michael, I think I usually group this into 2 buckets. I think there's, as Lee's talking about, there's a creation, ideation piece of where this intersection is happening. And, whether you can start that process with words or a prompt or an article, you can really kick off a creative process in a way that never happened before, at a speed that never happened before. But also, I think it's in the editing and cleaning up process that is really, a tremendous part of the power of this, because it's going to return so much time back to the creatives to be creative. If you can take out the rote work of design and editing and return that to creatives to work on new ideas, it's just going to make the world more creative.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, and I use tools for content, and I'll use the image generators for like really simple things like a blog post or something, but it's not complicated like what you guys are doing, but still same process. And I was on the Zoom this morning with one of my clients, and it was a simple question, but they just say, we were thinking about changing the name of this product to something like, and they read me 3 or 4 brainstorm ideas they had. And I went, let me give you some ideas. And I just went, directly to Gemini Advanced, put in, synonyms for this, and gave them another 10 or 15 alternatives in no time. And out of that, we could iterate back and forth. We can comment on it. We can learn. So human in the loop, no question, but it was something that might have taken me, an hour or 2 to come up with enough permutations of a name versus a minute, maybe.
Right. And then apply that to actual design with design tools, and you might have spent days cleaning up something so it's presentable to a customer on those 5 ideas, and instead, boom, you can say, all right, just clean this up with the following parameters, and you've got something to present in the call that you have them on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And another big thing that we're doing is going from that ideation phase to actual output too. So how is this really a usable asset, in production quality, production ready, right? It's one thing to mock something up. It's another to say, well, I need the actual asset to put on that billboard, right? And so we're doing that. And I think that's, to me, I'm just so excited about, hey, there's a thought. I can visualize it in my head. If I can say it, I can see it. And if I can see it, I can also produce it. And so that's that's coming from an idea in your head to the t-shirt on your back as short of a cycle as possible.
Yeah. I mean, this sort of bleeds into the next question that I wanted to ask, and that's really around all the noise we've heard of, oh, AI is going to replace human creativity, and what's the line between what AI should do and what a human designer should be doing, and what uniquely comes from the human. I mean, and you're a designer, so I mean, this is coming from someone who certainly has, I'm sure, thought about this in a lot of different ways. So how do you guys see that? I mean, what is that intersection, and how, realistically, what's the human's role in this, and what's the machine's role in this, and how do they work together?
Yeah, at first I thought traditionally, like, I'm in control, right?
Mm.
I'm going to come up with the color palette. I'm going to dictate, and then I'll dictate that to the AI, and it'll somehow help me. But what's changed is it's more like having a brand partner, or a design assistant who's there with me, literally with me, and saying, yeah, well, those are pretty cool color ideas, but because the company is located in Bend, Oregon, you might want to consider more of a natural color palette that's based on the Deschutes National Forest, right? So it takes it to a whole other level of creativity where, wow, that's awesome. I'm still the curator. I'm still the one who's trying to create those styles and lock them in for our customers. But I get to do the fun. I'm the curator. I'm the mixer. I'm the one who can decide what it's going to be. But the assistant's doing a lot more work than I ever would have imagined. And to the point where it's even writing visual prompts that are very, very creative. Like, your product line has an iridescent material in the fabric, and you want to, and it's for hiking at night. Let's create some scenes that would show that. And then what does that mean, right? So it's just, it takes it to a whole new level for me.
Yeah.
And it's fun too. It's really, really exciting stuff.
Yeah. I think just to build on that, Michael, there's that perception that the humans are going to be taken out of the equation. And I think that, as Lee's saying, that's a misperception. Humans will be at the controls, and their body of work is going to shift more to being the curator, the mover of the ideas, the ideas behind it, whereas something else is going to take control of a lot of those road tasks again, that will just keep more of that control within the human. But it's just, ideas do not get made out of thin air. They have to come from someone that's in connection with either the experience or the customer or the product that is generating the need for that idea.
I mean, it seems like even just that process of having, permutations of a concept is considerably enhanced, because you would do way more than what you would do if you were doing this by hand. And even with a staff, how many mock-ups would you do versus I can have the machine do 100 uniforms and pick out the one I like best versus 5 or 3 or whatever you would have normally done. Yeah.
But and the concept isn't new to creativity. I think if you go back to art studios of the Romans or of the Renaissance era, there was an artist, and then there were apprentices who would take those ideas in a different direction at the behest of the creator, and you learned from that process and brought it back to the originator. And I think that's we're multiplying that by a couple factors, but that's what's going on right now, and it's just accelerating the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exciting. To see the enhanced version of design and the designer and their role in this. I think that's really interesting. So talking about creative design. And one of the things that, over the last year, talked a lot about it. I mean, I guess from a marketing perspective, we talked for years about personalization. But I've seen with some of the AI tools that I've looked at over the last year, that's sort of taken it to a different place. And what are the advantages and I don't know, maybe limitations too of this personalization experience in the context of creative design?
Sorry, I thought you got this one. You want to take the first shot, and then I'll. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, I think that I kind of link it back, Michael, to this is all an accelerator. Personalization has been a goal of designers, in all experiences, but let's focus on web experiences. Since we've created the first websites, and but I don't think it's ever achieved what we want it to. You get a few people down swim lanes that or deer paths or cow paths that sort of mark where most people go, but they aren't really personalized to the level that you as a product designer, you as a creative designer want, or you as a customer want. We all aspire to that experience of whether it's your favorite REI or your other retailer who they understand what you need. They know your size, your body type, your expertise, and they can route you to what you really want in a designed experience. Now, I think that this adds the steroids, the capabilities, the speed to get smarter about that, to understand more what those use cases are, to have more permutations that can take you off the cow paths to an area that may be just for you, and give you that level of personalization that we all want.
Yeah, and I think you because of the efficiency, we haven't talked a whole lot about what our product actually does yet, but we're gonna talk more about that. But there's one example is you have a background for your demo, your presentation slides, right? And you're speaking to an audience in Tokyo. Well, you might have graphics that include children in them. I'm using an actual use case here, but they're not Japanese kids, right? So you can literally replace that and put Japanese kids in there. So you're localizing it. You can personalize your presentation almost in with very little effort, and to be able to target those different audiences. And so that's just been a game changer too. It's like, my God, this is, and it's on brand. So we give you the guardrails to have your style saved, but let you do iterations and variations of that. It's like having your own stock image library that you can tweak to be personalized, localized, or even seasonal, right? St. Patty's Day is coming. We're going to do some leprechaun versions of our avatars. So,
and I think just to drive that home even further, as you create on-brand content that now Lee's decided we're gonna regionalize to Tokyo or to Japan. Now, there's a push of the button that can change that to, well, you know what, Kyoto's a little bit different from Hokkaido, so let's regionalize that. It's snow up there and it's really hot down in Kyoto, so let's make it so that it feels more personal to the user who's going to see it at that moment. And you add that to regional, seasonal, regional campaigns, and it's just going to personalize everything from a website to a new product launch, and that's just a single example.
Yeah, not to mention social media, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can respond with a visual related to whatever the current topic is, and still be on brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, the brand consistency, and yet being able to deliver something that is, and much more quickly deliver something that is really personalized. And we talked about personalization for a long time, but it was really based on big segments, and big segments don't really personalize. I felt like for years that personalization often was a bigger miss than it was a hit most of the time, because it didn't necessarily focus on the right data or have the capability to do it in a more interactive, real-time-ish way, right?
Right, and consumers like us, I think you're more frustrated when a personalization try fails than if there's no try at all.
Yeah.
Don't try to put me into that segment or that swim lane. when I'm not part of that, and I'd
Right.
just rather be part of the whole the grand experiment.
Yeah, I mean, for e-commerce, for example, this is a tremendous change. I think for for e-commerce sites to really be able to personalize in a ways that they've never even thought about trying to do before. So yeah, it's
That's
exciting.
right. Yeah.
So we're talking about this in the context of more graphic design, but I'm just curious, like, what are the other sort of potential areas that you see AI powered design tools play out, like architecture or product design, fashion. I mean, there are a lot of different industry verticals that this could apply to. So, what do you guys think about that? I mean, are you seeing some use cases there that make a lot of sense, and you think would be a good use of the technology?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
probably flip it around to you. Sorry, Lee. I'd probably flip it around to you and say, where are you not seeing it? Because it is
True.
in every segment all of the time. And we've been live with our product really only over the last month or two of since we at least began talking about it. And already we've been approached by segments that we didn't expect. The artistic community. We've been approached by an artist who sees the use of our technology as an opportunity to allow his user base to iterate on his designs on brand. I think in architecture and other things, you were seeing just that speed, that iteration, where it used to be that you use the architectural analysts working in the labs overnight for days on end, and they'd come out with something and give it to the presenter while they went off and tried to sleep it off. And
Right.
and now that stuff is a push of a button away. It's a game changer for all of it, at least at the speed level.
Yeah, and I hope that we've picked a really good one too, which is focusing on brands, right? So I feel like we're bringing world-class agency quality. We haven't talked about the quality either. The quality of the work that we're doing. I mean, you've seen it, and it is world-class. This is top quality stuff.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're enabling. That's what used to be the realm of big agencies and big budgets, Fortune 500 companies that can afford that could do that. Well, I'm excited about bringing that level of quality and brand effectiveness down to the long tail, SMBs, and even startups. It's everything they need to get started building your brand. And if you start with your brand from the beginning, and if you do that early on, you can grow your brand much more efficiently and quicker, better, faster down the road. And you're not guessing, you're not second guessing anything. You know who you are, what you want to express, and you're just getting the assets to be able to do that fluidly. So that, to me, that the rewards of that are like, there's so many, right? The cost effectiveness, just the effectiveness in general, and now anyone can do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, years ago when I was at Autodesk, one of the things we like to talk about was democratization of the technology. Right? We took this high-end CAD concept and made it something that was accessible to any designer, anyone could use it, could get it. It was reasonably priced. It was much more available, and it seems like that's sort of the same thing we're seeing now. Right? These tools democratize the capabilities so that small and mid-sized companies even have the same ability to generate that high quality and quickly and stay on brand and all those things. So
yeah, today, Michael, we're working with a customer today who is a startup, is in need of getting out into to display what the capabilities are that they have. They need to take to have some photographs, and those photographs need to be on location in 9 different forests out there. And our customer was presented with a bill that would be just over $100,000 to be able to go out and do that. And I'm pretty sure, and we'll have to look at the results, we're going to be able to do that with our standard subscription, which is less than 20%, less than 5% of that.
Yeah,
and they just wouldn't have been able to do that either.
Right,
They
right.
would just been, well, we're going to have to do some stock imagery, I guess. Or
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah, so not even just the capability to generate it that way or do it quickly, but the idea that I wouldn't have even been able to address this in that way if I didn't have
Right.
this capability. Yeah.
Right.
Well, so one of the areas that always comes up when you talk about AI is ethical considerations, and so just for a minute, let's look at that and see kind of how do we involve these ethical considerations? What are they that arise out of using the generative AI capabilities in creative processes, and then how do you guys address the ownership and artistic intent or even bias that could be introduced from the design process?
Yeah, we, well, we starting from the bias point of view,
Hmm.
we remove that because when you want to do an asset, you decide that you know I can't show you the tool, but you'll be able to
Sure.
decide what the attributes are of the people that are in this particular shot. So you
Hmm.
control the diversity, you control the body size, shape,
Hmm.
skin tone. So it's really not an inherent bias in the model. Our tools allow you to decide how much of that you want, right?
Sure.
That's just one aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a degree of control that we give the creative designer, and you always want the creative designer to have that final say.
Sure.
We always get asked, like, how can you allow this? How can you allow that to come out of the system? Well, there is a reason that the creative designer, just like they do today in a more manual way, is there
Mm.
as the arbiter of whether something can get out the door. But
Mm.
we also we're built on top of all the big LLMs, and we use them for what they do best. But we rely on them as well to be as unbiased as possible about their own
Mm.
inputs, and that's
Sure.
something that we we
Mhm.
we as an industry have to make sure that they stay true to their calling on that, because that will impact all of our abilities to deliver product on the end.
Sure.
And then if you think about what we're doing as far as just like, okay, you're the your designers in your company are going to come up with your styles. You're not going to come up with styles that are ripping off another artist. I mean, that would just
Mhm.
be dumb. So we don't allow that for one thing. We don't put artists' names in our prompts, and we don't allow our users to do that either.
Mm.
But we're pretty safe, I think, from that point of view. Of I'm not going to, it's the output again that's going to infringe upon a copyright. If you could use any tool to infringe upon someone's copyright.
Sure.
So whether I took an image and I ran a Photoshop filter on it and it looks like an Andy Warhol, well, why are you putting out an Andy Warhol ripoff? So
Right.
I don't know. That's kind of interesting to me. I do think that artists who've contributed to the world of visuals have
Mm.
that's the entire history of visuals. That great if they can get credit or compensation somehow. And I think there might be some really interesting things coming along those
Sure.
lines, which would be amazing. Because then now you're funding artists. They did something a long time ago, but people appreciate that style and they might get rewarded for that. That's a dream, but I think that'll be
Mm.
great. Um, but yeah, so ethically, we just try to. We obviously we're not going to be copying other people's work.
Mm.
Design has always been about influences, fashion. You look at trends. What imagery evokes an emotion? Well, that
Mm.
comes from our history.
Sure.
So, do we not be able to tap into our history of visual language to be able to make new visuals that speak to people and evoke emotions in them? Like, it's a beautiful tool to me, and it's the most creative thing ever.
Sure. Well, I mean, some of what you said there really makes me feel like the idea, which I hadn't really thought about this in this way, because using most generative AI tools, it's really about the prompt. There's not a lot of other guardrail. There are some built in the model itself, of course, but the idea that you have such a granular level of control that you as the designer are really setting this up. So any bias you had would of course flow into the design, but that's normal. That's not an unusual process. We're not introducing anything from the AI that wouldn't have already existed. and hopefully it makes it obvious that you can control that to the point that you do in fact eliminate more of that bias in the process. So,
Right.
yeah, that makes sense. So then how are the notions around, what's a good design? How's that challenged, or maybe it's not, maybe it's just expanded by the use of AI? And I think, we've touched on some of this already, but I just, in a way to look at this, notions of good design, and then, what challenges to that, or how is this enhanced based on the use of the AI tool?
Yeah, ideally, Michael, I think it doesn't challenge it. Good design is good design, and we all appreciate that and run with it. I do think that maybe there's a heightened element of understanding where copying and just sort of marginally iterating on someone else's design could be mistaken for good design on your part. But I think that's just a level of control that we have to put in to really understand how something's gone through its evolution. And it's almost like there's a blockchain of good design that we need to follow to make sure that someone's not getting credit who didn't deserve it. But if it's good design, it's good design.
Yeah, and I think we're heading into a renaissance period, frankly. I mean, more people putting more creative energy with tools that let them have output. It's going to be really interesting to see, because the bar's going to be raised for what's acceptable quality, right? And so the more creative, the more the imagery does what it's supposed to do. If it's for a brand, does it evoke an emotion that's associated with my brand? Then I think we're going to get really good at that. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but sounds like a renaissance period to me.
And I think the tools are changing in front of our eyes. So, before Illustrator and Photoshop, there were different tools that you looked to for design, and Figma added even more to that. Now, there are going to be new and different folks who are good designers who know how to use AI to get there. And,
if you happen to be good with words and you're a good language person and you know how to describe things that are visual, that's most artists can't really do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, it just looks cool, so, but there's a whole, there's the world of language behind that, which is where the AI is educating the designer along the way. Oh, that's what ambient light is versus a key light or something, right? So the language of visuals.
Interesting. So just to close this out, because we are getting short on time, I'm just curious where you think this is going. Like, if you look into the future, or even 5 years into the future, which in the AI world is a lot, I guess, actually. But where do you see this AI design kind of collaborative model? Where's this going? And are there other emerging trends or technologies that you're excited about to incorporate in this concept?
You're ending on such an easy, small question. Well,
yeah, I like to tee up the easy ones at the end, and
maybe in the vein of just sort of brainstorming a little bit. It's funny because we did innovation work for Ford autonomous vehicles, and we got to design what's it going to be like 5-10 years from now when there's no steering wheel. Well, those are great questions, and they're so much fun to work on. And I do think that way, right? So, like in this case, I want to see a few applications. I'll just throw them out there. Maybe I shouldn't, but like my own history, a childhood memory, or a childhood memory of a family member. So we've recorded oral histories in the past, and you sit around and talk to grandma and you capture that story. Well, now that captured story is fed right into the styled prompt for grandma's brand. And you have a visual narrative that goes along with that. And so to me, that's just one example of there are so many, but I think that's a really exciting one personally. I can not everything's photographed, not everything's documented, and not everything's curated. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
So maybe having some of those stories to share with your family members, and that would be amazing to me.
Yeah.
But I digress on that one. Sorry.
Michael, I'm excited for the future. I'll start off with that, and I think that design and content velocity are now going to be ahead of demand, which is just something that you couldn't do before. Ideas took a while to bake, and certainly the content that would flow out of them took even longer to bake, and didn't get regionalized and seasonalized and all that other stuff that you're talking about. Now we're going to be ahead of that, and I think that's going to be exciting. It's going to allow for quicker iterations, which whether you're talking about e-commerce or you're talking about art and movies and streaming audio, everything can change at a speed that is going to be stimulating to us as customers. Maybe too much, but but right now I think it's just exciting to see that creatives can keep up with, in fact, outpace the consumers of their works.
Yeah, that's great. So that's all the time we have. Great conversation. I really appreciate you guys joining today. Before I let you go, though, one thing I like to ask at the end of the show, could you recommend somebody for the audience that you think, a thought leader, an author, somebody that you think would be relevant to the conversation we had and would be good for them to check out?
I'm going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, I think YouTube's become pretty useful. There's so much to keep up with. You can actually use AI to summarize those YouTube videos too, and get to the point a lot faster. But one person that comes to mind is just Matt Wolf. He's you can subscribe to him online, but he's just done a good job from day one of just being a fan of the technology, and so he just is constantly demoing whatever he finds interesting at a very fast pace. And then he summarizes everything weekly. So it's kind of like the weekly news summary. He's just one of many that are doing this kind of thing. But I think that's a good place to start as far as you just want to kind of see who's doing what and see quick demos of what the result is of those tools. So
good. Yeah, thank you. That's a great recommendation. So, John Lee, again, thanks so much for joining. Really enjoyed the conversation. And I know we're going to continue to have this ongoing conversation about how this is going to evolve as it changes going forward. So, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having us.
All right.
And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining. Remember to hit that subscribe button. And for more on AI and other software research reports and posts, check out the arionresearch.com/blog and /research reports. And don't forget to join us next week. I'm Michael Fawcett, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.